Welcome to the Plant a Trillion Trees podcast. I'm Eva Monheim.
And I'm Hal Rosner. We are both certified arborists through the International Society of Arboriculture. The purpose of our podcast is to encourage tree planting and proper tree care for our urban forests, which include neighborhoods, parks, and other open spaces.
We will also cover a myriad of tree topics, including the important role trees play in relationship to the climate crisis. Thank you for joining us. The Plant a Trillion Trees podcast is happy to announce that we have won 2 Garden Communicator International Silver Laurel Medal Awards for Best Podcast and Best Podcast Episode. We've also won a Garden Communicators International Gold Laurel Medal Award for a Best Podcast Episode. We'd like to thank Garden Communicators for their recognition. The Andalusia Garden Symposium returns to Andalusia Historic House Gardens and Arboretum on Thursday, May 1st, with 4 amazing guest speakers: Joe Thompson, Kelly D. Norris, Asa Gregors-Warg, and Charlotte Harris. This year, this inspiring all-day event will be held entirely on the picturesque grounds of Andalusia. Don't miss your chance to hear from some of the most influential and innovative voices in horticulture and gardening. Landscape architects in Pennsylvania can receive 4 continuing education credits by attending. Purchase your tickets today at andalusiapa.org.
Verdant Earth Educators provides dynamic in-person training and online learning opportunities for environmental and horticultural businesses. Owned by ISA certified arborists and former university faculty, the Verdant Earth Educator team provides consultations on tree care and recommends climate-resilient opportunities for your valued green spaces. Verdant Earth Educators is all about seeding knowledge for success. Find Verdant Earth Educators at verdanteartheducators.com.
Monheim Microphones designs and handcrafts top-tier studio microphones and preamps right here in the United States in Hollywood, California. Their incredible line of innovative microphones and designs are used around the world by everyone from podcasters to top-charting record producers and singers. Monheim Microphones, unparalleled excellence. MonheimMicrophones.com. The Urban Wood Network gives people strength in numbers and a collective voice to showcase the growing environmental impact of an industry like urban wood utilization. This is really critical in a world where resource recovery and carbon storage benefits can go a long way to meet the needs of climate sustainability goals of cities, businesses, and consumers. Contact us at urbanwoodnetwork.org. This podcast is being recorded on January 3rd, 2025. Linda Langelo is a Colorado State University Extension horticultural specialist and host of the Relentless Gardener podcast. The 5 counties under her care are in Northeast Colorado, where she assists homeowners and professionals with horticultural issues. She created a Facebook page titled Garden the Plains to reach a broader audience with the help of master gardeners. During her 40 years in horticulture, she has worked in both private and public horticultural institutions. She has implemented arboretums and overseen them. As Assistant Director of Horticulture at Salisbury State University, she helped implement an arboretum campus-wide that is going strong today. She went on to be director at Adkins Arboretum early in its implementation, increasing its exposure in the local and surrounding communities, and as a member of the American Public Garden Association. In July 2021, she was awarded the Lois Woodward Paul Memorial Award for her career achievements from Longwood Gardens Alumni as a fellow alumnus of the Professional Horticulture Program. Welcome to the Plant a Trillion Trees podcast. Linda, we're delighted that you could be with us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Love talking to you guys.
Oh, we love talking with you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Linda, you manage a large area, vast areas of Colorado through the extension work at Colorado State University. Give our listeners a scope of why that region number 1 is called the Golden Plains region. And I'm hearing it's about 4,800 square miles, which is mind-boggling.
Yes, it is. And it's called the Golden Plains because in the fall, that is the color of the plains. It's supposed to be a grassland. But, with past history, windbreaks were put out here in the Dust Bowl. And so they've remained. And the NRCS is here to help folks, along with CSU Extension, Forest Service, to manage those. And I work very closely with both of those organizations, but I do cover 5 counties. And to travel from the northern part in Julesburg to Burlington is 200 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just to get there. That's not just to answer people's questions for that day. I might have to go all the way to Stratton, which is another 30 some miles, and then back, and then wherever else. And I do venture into Nebraska, and I do venture into Kansas.
So along with that vastness, walk us through, we've had you on before, and we've both really been taken by the stories of working with these small towns, these communities situated out in the plains. Talk about your experience, your thoughts about working with rural America, small town America.
Each town has its own dynamics. You can't necessarily take a model from, say, Yuma, Colorado, and apply it in Holyoke in another county, in Phillips County. The town of Yuma is in Yuma County, along with Ray. And so they are as individualistic as night and day. You could probably take some pieces of that model that works in Yuma to Phillips, but it's just not received in the same way. So it's the same culture, it's ag and it's farmland, and there are some greenhouses. There are not many nurseries. There are florists and things here that relate to horticulture. Some towns have their own clubs, garden clubs. Some do not. Some have tree boards. Some do not. So they each, as I said, has their own dynamics. But some of the towns out here have a better tax base because they are able to do more with their economic development organizations, and others do not. And it is hard to attract businesses when you have a small size of a population. And that really hurts a community because there's no tax base and no tax base to help address tree issues out here.
Right. Right.
And so as a land grant university, we are located in all of the counties. I travel around to all of the offices, particularly through the summer. But, if something happens in March or February, if the weather's good, off I go. And I let them know, it's better to assess things while they're growing before, it's sitting there dormant in the winter. It's harder to assess something. And, it's educating one-on-one, it's educating through the seminars we do, it's educating through the Facebook page, my Relentless Gardener column, and all of these other things that have helped bring up the level of understanding to the local people. They love their trees and they want to do right by them as their plants, but they don't always know what that is. But I have gained a reputation that the NRCS will get a phone call and say, oh, we're just going to pass this on to Linda. Or even sometimes the Forest Service says, oh, we're just going to pass this on to Linda. So Linda gets the calls.
I just, a quick observation. It seems to me the work you're doing in these counties, you're finding out, correct me if I'm wrong, our country, our society is going through some difficult times and we're fractured and there's a lot of finger pointing. But trees seem to be that baseline unifier. Am I right?
You are right. You really are right, because they all look at it and they don't want any tree in their yard or in their community to die. And it's a concern for them when they see that the town cannot properly manage the dying or dead trees. And, they don't know exactly how the process can work with a tree board, and they don't know who necessarily to go to. And that's why when this Inflation Reduction Act came through from our new state forester, Carrie Tomlinson, I took it around May 1st to all of these entities and said, this is a way forward for you all over the next 4 years.
Yeah, people don't realize how much that IRA really has helped small communities. I mean, small communities that are barely breathing. You know, it's hard to even fathom here being in the East. I think one of the big things is that the reason why there's so much difficulty right now is that nobody can put themselves into somebody else's shoes. And they refuse to do it because they're just stubborn and they don't want to see a different perspective. And if you could just imagine not having everything that you have, and that's what it's like being out in a rural community, it changes the whole perspective. And getting some money from the infrastructure bill it's a godsend. It's a godsend for people who need support and need greening and who might need to have a tree removed because it's dead. I mean, there's a whole host of things there, but it all has to do with health too, human health. The idea of having that 30% cover of shade so that you can get oxygen and have clean air, and people just don't understand.
Well, speaking of oxygen, I mean, that's the grant. It gave that community oxygen to go another step further, because when that storm hit in Yuma on May 10th, honestly, the town workers came out, all kinds of volunteers, other businesses stopped their business for the day, and they were helping remove all the damage and helping businesses board up, take the limbs off the street. It took the whole week or more. And then other entities move in from other counties, because we, as each county and each town, do not have the resources. And it's the same thing when there's a blizzard. It's the same thing. We help each other out. We have to, or we will not survive.
Yeah. And the other thing too here, I know in Pennsylvania, and Hal knows this too, is that we are very fortunate that we have a cooperative extension group in each community. We'll have a soil person, we'll have a horticulture person, we'll have a whole host of, and then here's you. And all the counties that you're covering, where we would have 3 in one county, it's you in 5 counties, 6 counties, however many counties it is. And that's the difference. And that's the disparity, if you will, between our region here in the East and your region in the West. And we still have rural areas here in the state of Pennsylvania, very rural areas, but they still have a county agent. And I want to tell you something, those county agents are so in demand, as you well know. They're in demand, but they also are a bridge between the other counties. And they're the bridge between the people and the land grant school.
Right.
And that's what makes the connection and gives the education to people. And it kind of humbles you when you hear your story and knowing what you have to deal with.
Well, and I go back to a lot of the specialists and experts from the Land Grant University and say, can you come? Can you help do a talk or do this or do that? And it's a great resources. And I tell people, if I don't necessarily know the answer or can find the answer with this problem, I will find you somebody that can do that. And it lifts my level of education and the reputation for all of us out here.
I think it also raises the morale of the people that you're serving.
Yes, it does. And the whole deal with the Inflation Reduction Act is disproportionately impacted. And we're on the map, but we're not on the map, if you get what I'm saying.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Disproportionately impacted?
It basically means that we just don't have the funding to do the right kind of tree management for the health of our communities. And we don't have the tax base. You have to put money aside for snow when there's a challenging storm. There's other things like the sewage system is older in a lot of these towns. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs help. And so they're busy writing grants for all of that. And trees are sort of like, we'll just, they're over here. We can't afford an arborist. That's a dream. That would be an absolute wow. If every town out here could afford a town arborist, hey, wow, make my job a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. There's just not enough money.
It would be kind of cool, like to have somebody like your position parallel to you that would be just an arborist to serve those counties, because then you would get a lot more done.
Yes. And it's great to have from Spur Campus now, Carrie Tomlinson. And we have a new gal that was like 7 days on the job when we took our training in Denver, Valerie, who's going to come out. And that's like, yes, because they took that off the table a few years ago and it was like, oh no. And I'm glad to have her able to come out and visit on a regular basis. That's so wonderful to have that additional resource that we don't necessarily have to pay for.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow.
Linda, I'm wondering if some of the projects, I'm visualizing again, small town America, smaller communities in Colorado. Have you worked with downtowns such as they are for tree planting projects as part of commercial revitalization?
Yes, there's 2 or 3 different town managers that keep in touch with me. And recently, through the Colorado Tree Coalition, Trees Across Colorado, I had one of the towns, Akron. Their town manager was new and an outsider looking at the town. And she loved the idea that, wow, we can buy these smaller trees from Trees Across Colorado, started by Gertie Grant, and they bought 66 of them. And I was like, whoa, okay, do you have the resources to plant these and manage these? And they assured me, yes, they do. So I said, okay, this is wonderful. And it makes you look good when you're going to form a tree board and Tree City USA and go for funding, even if it's next year on the IRA grant, because the IRA grant did not cover all of the different sections of my counties. They left off a portion of Kit Carson County and a portion of Washington County. We don't know why, but they did. And so I was assured that next year they would be on the map to apply for that.
Now, did those trees on in Akron, Colorado, did they go in on Main Street, such as it is, or?
They are going the golf course and other recreational areas.
Okay, so enhancement of green spaces.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Adding diversity. And I drove that point home that you want to continue to do that. And you want to continue to have different trees that will age out at the same time.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That's a good idea to have a mixed age group.
Yeah, because Eva mentioned, the rural quality of vast areas of Pennsylvania. And, that experience, especially for me, like east of the Susquehanna, which splits the state in half, of driving through small towns and getting a sense of, towns that have been a hard luck since coal and logging went away and mining, but somewhere in the last, 20 years, a tree planting program did come through. That's why I asked about Main Street. You're seeing Main Street, with the tree guards and the iron grates. And what's the favorite species? Oh, yeah, Bradford pear. And looking pretty good, though.
No, ours is honey locust. And there is a small town that did that. And they had a Main Street grant.
Okay.
And they asked me about different trees and everything, and I told them. And so in the end product, they chose honey locust, and I'm sorry, but it ended up that in a couple of years, they'll probably have to replace those trees.
Oh, really? Why was that? Yeah. Any idea?
They didn't give the appropriate spacing. And so, you don't always have control over, the different contractors.
Sure.
And, you can make the recommendations, you can give them the best information and education, and then you have to kind of step back. And if you have a town manager like Akron, who is gung-ho and, sort of will say, sees the light about doing it properly, then you're assured the results will be better.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no component for education with that grant?
Oh, there is. There is. And I will be doing it along with state level 4-H for the Learning Tree project and with Arbor Day. And we're going to go around to city councils again. And yes, I'm going to have a program on tree maintenance and care with volunteers and anybody else who's interested in attending.
Wow. That's a lot to think about. And I hope the people in your region appreciate you.
Well, I'm told I've been here, I guess it depends on whether, I started out part-time, if you include that, 19 years. But last summer, somebody said to me, a couple people said to me, when are you retiring? And I said, well, not just yet. And they said, well, when you do, we want your number. I said, no, you're not getting my number. And they said, you're going to leave a big hole. When I joined on, I started in Holyoke and I was part-time and they had no regular presence in the office for a horticulturalist. And so my regular presence and then later traveling to the other offices made a huge difference. It's like you open a business. You can't say the second day you're open, oh, sorry, I have a dentist appointment. I have to close. That does not help your business grow. And so my presence, a continual, gradual presence and listening to what the people wanted and connecting to different entities, because I'm really good at networking, it really helped everybody see that they had a place to go.
You sound relentless, and that's a good segue.
Bravo. That was really good.
Really on my game today.
To the Relentless Gardener column? Is that what you're getting around?
Yes, and the associated podcast. Tell us about your work in other forms of media, which is, as we're all learning, essential these days.
Yes, it is. Well, I was asked several years ago if I'd like to do a column through the Holyoke Enterprise. And I said, sure. And so I thought I'll list the names up and I sent them out to my master gardeners and they said, oh, Linda, Relentless Gardener, come on, that's it. Because hail, tornadic storms, high winds, dry winds, droughts. So I said, okay. And so I've been writing for them, 14, 15 years now. And in the last, 6 or 7 years, it's gone to other papers in Nebraska and Wyoming. And there's been a publisher who took over the Holyoke Enterprise. And I said, will you send my column out to these other papers? And so it's Kansas and Montana. And, so I think it may be as many as 35 papers now. And so from there, I decided, I think it was last year, AARP. I had a colleague who kept talking to me about AARP. And I said to her, what do you think if I propose to the Colorado people doing a gardening column on their blog once a month? And so she gave me the name and they thought it was great. So I started in Colorado and they put it in the blog once a month and they put it in their newsletter. And then I had a contact in Maryland. They gave me somebody who wasn't directly involved with that, but got me to the right person. And they just thought it was the best thing. And so I've been doing that for over a year. Every month I will send for the guest blog and the newsletter. And I hope to open that into other states because AARP is not really very well connected as far as, you can just push a button and give it to one person and it's sent. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to, keep getting out and out and out. So then the media folks at CSU ask experts if they will help answer questions for different entities that come to a land-grant university and want an expert in horticulture. So I got these questions about daisies, and I was sitting at my desk at a Friday afternoon, and I said, okay, I'll answer these for Martha Stewart. And it was one of the writers, and I answered these questions along with another CSU cohort. And then I guess somewhere along the way, that writer for Martha Stewart found out that I had worked at Longwood Gardens. And so that got back to the editor, Madeline. And ever since then, Madeline sends me questions I've written, let's see, I think it's 32 weeks in a year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, is right.
And I don't mind doing it because, it draws on my expertise, and it helps me grow and learn and get the word out there for accurate information. And it's just fun. And so through Garden Com, I tried for Canada's Local Gardener, and I've written a couple articles for that magazine.
Typically, how many words? All over the place? Or how many words are your column?
Oh, wow. It varies.
Yeah.
It varies. It really does. But I try to keep it to a solid page. Sometimes it bleeds into a page and a half.
Okay.
And they still accept it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, I'm sure you're learning that gardening is still a passion for many Americans and North Americans. And also, if you're writing for AARP, I know it's always talked about, for cognitive function and strength and flexibility. And so, yeah, it's great that you're out there getting the word out and working with people that, the internet's been great, needless to say, to oversimplify, but the internet is also a repository for nutty information that isn't always applicable to gardening,
Right. And just doing these things, like I said, it's a wonderful learning experience, and it's great to get the accurate information out there.
Yeah.
So with your Relentless Garden column, you can reach a lot of people with that, not only just your 5 counties, but pretty much the whole state of Colorado and beyond. And then you have your podcast. So tell us a little bit about that, and who do you have on there to...
Well, we were having a master gardener meeting, and head of the master gardener as coordinator for the state was Katie Dunker. And she had wanted somebody to do a podcast about a lot of the handouts that we had. And so I said, well, I can do that. And so I decided to use that same name so people would recognize that, and just started interviewing other agents and experts at CSU. And then I ventured out and interviewed people at the Denver Botanic Gardens. I've done Neil Bamsberger, who was in the Tree Coalition and did Champion Trees, and you name it. Anybody in the state that wants to talk about plants with me is welcome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it gives the people in the real rural regions that don't have the, I want to say, amenities. This provides an amenity that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Exactly.
That's great.
It's another way to reach another audience that, if I didn't do my Facebook page, Garden the Plains, that was at the request of the boss's secretary. And I was like, I don't necessarily like Facebook. And so I started doing it. And oh my gosh, people came into the office and said, we're really glad she's doing this, because they can go to that site. And, when a storm that came through Yuma, I put up a post to tell them what to do. And it got shared over 27 times, so I'm like, the information is out there. It's accessible. It's right at their fingertips. And it's faster than I can get around to 5 counties.
Absolutely. Now, to take this into a little bit different direction, you're a relentless person. You have a lot of energy, and you just finished writing a book that's on Amazon. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, in 2019, I decided that upon seeing that all these people were joining gardening in the plant world, I said, there's so much more that they need to know, that I know, that I've had a mentor that saw the wisdom that I had. And, she's been gone for over 14 years. And she said, one day you will be sharing your knowledge with thousands of people. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And so I wrote this book, and it made several transformations. And I finally decided, since I couldn't find the right publisher, that I was going to do this on Amazon. And so Plants Are Speaking, Are You Listening?
Is the name of the book.
Plants Are Speaking.
Are you
listening?
Yes, is the name of my book, and it will help people understand how plants can bring harmony into their lives. Because we are living in a state of chaos. And that's also what, a lot of people realized during COVID in 2019. And it doesn't have to be this way. There's another way. There's another avenue. And as I say on my YouTube channel, Plants Are Speaking, Are You Listening? How does the soul of a garden help the soul of a person? And there are numerous ways, because my book focuses on vibrational energy. That is all of life. And I want folks to know, and we seem to forget, that plants are the light. You are the light. Animals are the light. And they are here. We are here as a global family, and we're here to help each other. Plants are here to serve, yes, but we need to collaborate to make it the best world we can.
When you've been out on site in the field, and I'm having fun, even though I've never been to any of these parts of Colorado that you speak of, but have you had moments, maybe I'm romanticizing now, naively, of being in an aspen grove and sensing vibrational resonance and influx and such?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember it was when I first started out, and you always get nervous. You have a reputation to earn. And I was with this farmer, and he called me, and he didn't know what was wrong with his windbreak. And so before I got there, I asked the trees in the windbreak, what is the issue? And I heard the word drought. And I got there, and, he's saying, what is wrong? He had the concept of watering his crops. But when I told him that it was drought and what were the signs and symptoms of drought, got it. And I was just thrilled.
It's interesting because a drought can happen. We were doing a training session this past fall with Penn students or Penn workers, and we said that we have drought now, but these plants are going to exhibit it several years out. It's not just a one and done thing. You're going to have to see the progress. Next spring, you're going to have to check to see what branches are dead. Have we had enough water? What's going on? The trees might have lost a lot of their root systems, so they might not be as stable. Those are the kind of things you think of. And a lot of people don't think, because they forget that we had a drought last year. And now we're seeing stuff from the drought this year, and they have already forgot about the drought. So they're wondering what the heck is going on here. So that's an issue. And
it's a very delicate dynamic, that drought, long-term, short-term. Do you happen to remember the species that you were talking to, engaging with? Was it cottonwood or aspen, or what gets used for windbreaks in Colorado? What's the popular species?
Well, a lot of juniper.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
Yes, a lot of, Colorado blue spruce.
Oh, so they're more conifers then.
Yeah, more conifers, Austrian pines, mostly those. Some hackberries, lilacs, some of the pea shrubs and things like that are mixed in with that. But mostly, junipers. That's a big.
Is that red cedar, Virginiana?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
fantastic.
And they're a pretty tough plant.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. But, when you have 3 or 4 years of a tough drought, and I tell folks, trees work backwards.
I like that.
They're responding from last year. You're now seeing it. And, it's just like dis-ease in the body.
Yes.
When do you really become aware of when you're feeling really sick? If you're really sympathetic or, an empath for yourself, then you might feel it in the initial stages. But most of us, we get all the way down the road and, oh, I'm sorry, but you have this cancerous tumor,
Yeah.
So trees work backwards, history. I tell people, well, I have this plant and, I planted it and it's struggling. And I said, well, the thing that you don't realize that you bought this plant from this nursery or this greenhouse is you don't know its history. So, hopefully my book will open the door and the perspective that we can hear their voice. I mean, I've had lots of experiences hearing their voices and not just about trees, but when I worked in an estate in New York, I was in charge of a Lord and Burnham greenhouse and it was all manual. No automatic systems, so you couldn't go away and you had to crank open the windows and shut them down and so forth. And we were having this really bad snowstorm coming in. And after it snowed overnight, I woke up the next morning and what I heard was burr or cold. And I'm thinking, who's talking to me? And then it happened again. And so I got up and I got dressed and I thought to myself, something's wrong in the greenhouse. And so a foot of snow, I had to go to the other end of the estate. I walked, and sure enough, the glass that was curved, coming from the roof, going down to the side, had been pushed in by the heavy, wet snow. And the cymbidium orchids had snow coming in and the cold air. Now, cymbidiums, they do like it cold, but they don't like it freezing. And so I was able to get the manager of the estate to help me and we fixed the problem. But that's how they were communicating with me. And, you say, well, as I was waking up, you have your least inhibitions as you're waking up or you're going to sleep. Mm-hmm. So you get clear messages. And I tell people, pay attention to that. I'm also asking people to tune in to their intuition. It's in your subconscious and it's there for you. It's your North Star. It's your guide to say, should I turn left or should I turn right? And you have to take a moment to clear your mind and it'll come to you. And we don't all get the messages in the same way. Now, I'm like Temple Grandin. I see pictures, but I also hear. So, and other people I'm sure can do the same, but they have to practice and tune in.
That's interesting because I have a lot of house plants in my house. And sometimes I hear voices. I need water. And I get over there and sure enough, the plant's kind of a little bit wilted. It's dry because, the heat's on a lot during the winter, especially when it's cold and they're sitting right above the heat register on the windowsill. That's the way my house is. And sure enough, the plants are dry. So, I check them usually just before I go to bed and just when I wake up in the morning, because that's usually when they are audible, like you're saying.
Yeah.
That's usually when they're audible. Unless there's some time when I'm like, maybe there's a downtime during the day and I'll hear something. But for the most part, that's usually, you're correct. It's morning or evening.
Yeah. Well, and, not all their voices are the same. And I talk about, I'm going to talk about on YouTube that, you could have 25 zinnias in your garden all in one area. And no two are the same. They don't have the same energy. They don't have the same imprint. Clients ask me, well, I have this maple tree on the left side of my front walk, but the one on the right is struggling. Why? Well, it's not the same tree. Yes, it might have similar genetics, but it has a different energy. And so,
for a long time, my colleague, Dorothy, who actually lived in Colorado for a while, and she was a former student of mine, she had me come over to her house. And I went over to her house and I said, your gardens are really lovely. She said, oh, yeah, it's intuitive design. And I said, oh, that's really funny that you're saying that because I always let the plants guide me to where they want to go in the garden. And when they're looking unhappy, they tell me where they want to go. It's like, I don't want to be here. I want to be over there.
Exactly. And you know what? They can put themselves over there.
If they
can
speed up
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, what? How did you? But there was one client that had asked me for landscape suggestions. And I went to her house and got out of the truck and introduced myself and everything. And she says, well, we just bought this house and you can see for yourself, circular drive, long driveway. And bam, I got this flash in my head, a color picture of the way it should be. And I started describing to her, and she was quiet, really quiet. And when I finished, she said, my husband and I were just talking about that like the other day. And so, I picked up on it, and that's what that landscape wanted. That was the best thing for them. Landscape design is not cookie cutter.
No, it never is. And the same plants used over and over and over again in different landscapes doesn't work. And Hal does vegetable gardening, and he seems to be very intuitive with vegetables. Do you listen to them, Hal?
Well, let's see. That's a great question. And I do want to say I connect with them. I'm comfortable saying that. I don't know if I'm hearing too many messages. I know before I decamped on a trip recently, I was feeling a lot of sadness because I knew cold weather was coming and I wasn't able to harvest all the leafy things, the arugula, the kale, the parsley, the collard. I knew things were really going to take a beating. And yeah, I tell my wife late November, December, when it starts to get cold, I said, I can't even look out there, because I know the arugula has flattened. And if I keep talking right now, I'll get emotional. So
maybe you feel it rather than hear it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's another way. Everybody connects in some level, whether it's through heart or like, the emotional level or the sound, or it could be a vision. Like you were saying, right. You saw a vision.
Visually, yes. I think the one thing the garden at large, or as a comprehensive message, is the soil is exhausted. So upcoming season is going to be really working. Even though I compost like crazy, I'm not adding enough compost fast enough. And it's the same raised beds and the soil's exhausted. And I'm really looking forward to doing great things for it in terms of, it'll be the first time we do cover crops as far as, alfalfa and
clover's great.
Red clover, yeah.
Clover, white clover is great too, especially if you have groundhogs nearby or rabbits.
We do have groundhogs nearby.
They won't touch any vegetables if you have that in your garden all the time.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
I want to give a shout out though. This is I'm visiting family and in and out of San Francisco a couple times. Met a fellow who had watched, the tech boom in the Bay Area over the last 15, 20 years. And talked about the number of young people that are ensconced in what he was an Irishman, so he was very poetic. He called skyscraper residentials cheese graters. If you imagine, he said all these skyscrapers.
Oh, that's clever.
So for all the listeners of our podcast in the tech world that are working at home and don't have access to green space, I am getting a message of sorts. Go out and fill your place with, help me out here, mother-in-law's tongue. What is that?
Sansevieria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fill your place with plants regardless, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's very satisfying, and it's not like you have to grab your little green doggy residue bag and take that little dog out for a walk. If you've got houseplants, you just get to talk to them and water them and gently fertilize them and things like that. But we're becoming more and more urban as our society. There's no doubt about it.
Well, the green color.
Yeah.
That's your heart chakra. It's healing.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's true, Linda.
Yeah,
that's
really
very
important.
True. It's interesting that you brought up Sansevieria, because there's this man his name is Barry Yinger, who is a plant explorer in Tanzania. And he and his crew, that's all they hunt for are Sansevierias throughout Africa. And some of them he has photos of. They have these big globular ball flowers, and they're really tiny flowers, but they're on a stalk. And he was talking about how, they look when there's no flowers, but then when the flowers come on, that's how they can actually tell who is who, because most of the time it's hard to tell by their leaves. It's their flowers that, of course, we know that that's how they determine family. And I just thought it was really cool because he has this group of people who have this whole outdoor undercover Sansevieria collection. It's like hundreds and hundreds of them.
Wow.
Some of them are really tiny. Some of them are really big. And I have one that's really an oddball, which is a round leafed one that comes up into a spike. And it looks almost like a cactus without spines on it. And it is the coolest thing that I have in my bedroom. And sometimes when I walk by it, it pokes me. I go, oh, yeah, I know you're here.
Well, one thing about that, if he would ask, without the flowers on them, who is, male, female, he would be shown.
Yeah,
And
I think I'm sure he has to have some intuitive sense because
I'm
being
sure
a plant hunters are very
sure.
intuitive. But I just thought it was neat because they're coming. There's going to be a period in our time, maybe in the next 20 years, where we're going to see a whole new line of Sansevieria in the houseplant world because of his work. I just really believe that because he's just so dedicated to this species of or I should say genus of plants.
So for our listeners that don't know what we're talking about, Linda and Eva, the upside, as I understand it, as a newbie with Sansevieria, is low light, low maintenance, right?
Right. And not a lot of water either.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're on the 14th floor, it doesn't really matter what orientation your windows are in.
No.
And some of the tongues, or they call it a tongue, mother-in-law's tongues, some of them could be short, some of them could be narrow, some of them could be really long. The really long ones, they cut up and then they put them into soil and then root them. They're really good experimental plant too, if you want to try your hand at propagation. And they are an important plant within the African diaspora. Diaspora, is that correct? No, that wouldn't be correct. In the actual African communities, it's an important plant.
For herbal or?
That I'm not sure of. They might even have herbal qualities. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah.
But they are a really interesting plant. And again, they're tolerant to neglect.
Definitely. Not that I would ever neglect my houseplants.
No, I don't neglect my houseplants either. I just keep looking at them.
just to pivot a little bit, Linda, getting back to trees and plants communicating and speaking to us. I just watched a mini doc on the BBC website about Europe embracing recycling for paper. And they, kind of touched on pulp industry and stuff. So, and they, the usual shot of the drone above a logging operation with the pulp trees getting cut. I guess they were all, 14 inches diameter or something. What's going on with those trees? I mean, their lives are so short and sacrificial in terms of what they might be communicating.
Well, first of all, they're the right plants that are serving for that purpose, and they understand that. And, they have the option not to do that, to be another type of tree, to do something, just as we do. We all have free will. And so that's what's going on. That's the agreement there. Unless they're being so abusive about it, they will still serve to a point, but that is their free will. That is their choice. And that is the bottom line, really.
Well,
really, they all have an evolution and a life, but that's why, I was always taught, ask permission.
That's the rule of the native population, is ask permission before you cut it. I learned that a long time ago. And I was reading something about the black willow where they make the baskets from. Black willow? No, it's the black ash. That's what it was. It was the black ash tree. And they said that when they go to cut a black ash down, they ask it for permission to cut it so that they can make baskets. We'd like to make baskets out of you so that we could utilize them for the human population. And some trees don't give permission. Other trees say, absolutely, you can use me for basketry. And I think that that's just a beautiful way of acknowledging another being. As Robin Kimmerer would say, a fellow kin.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about being part of that global family. It's a part of the collaboration. It's a part of a new relationship that I think has been long forgotten, that, ask permission. If we went out and we asked permission, things would be much better than they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, even some of the trees in the woodlands that die and the trunks are still really important. And they started, like, even at Longwood Gardens, they started saving those trunks and putting these coroneted tops on that are all cut nicely and they look fancy. And they leave the trunk there because they know that even though the tree is dead, it's not dead because it becomes a living organism again when all the inhabitants inhabit it. So it becomes a source of life again.
Right. And beyond that, when that trunk is totally gone, totally used, it still has an energetic imprint. And so we can't think, oh, well, we'll put the same species right there and it doesn't live. Well, it doesn't work with that imprint now. It's changed, it's evolved. So we have to think in layers of things. And that'll be new to a lot of people.
Well, it's not new for plant people because as a former arboreta director, that when you accession a plant and put it in, and then it dies and you decession it, you always have those decession records. And that you never put the same plant back in the same hole or in the same area because it's like almost like honoring it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
very
pretty cool.
Yep. Very good point. But, it's about getting a broader audience to understand that. One garden at a time, raising the elevation of you, raising the elevation and the vibration of the planet changes things. It really does. And, wow, wouldn't it be incredible to have harmony instead of chaos?
Yeah. Well, and I think, it's just getting the vision of a tree climber. Someone who's an arborist who is working with a tree. They have to use their intuitive sense to make sure that they, first of all, do the job safely, but make sure that they remove the right part of the tree and leave what needs to be saved.
Right.
And I think that may not look at it as intuitive and they may not look at it as spiritual, but it's a very spiritual act.
Absolutely. And because they do that work as a passion and a living, they're more tuned in so many different ways.
I totally agree with that. And maybe they're not even aware of their connection. They might not even be aware of it.
Exactly. And they don't necessarily need to be.
Right.
Because, they're already doing what they need to be doing.
Yeah. Wow. Deep conversations here.
As we start 2025, Linda, it's always great to have you on and share your wisdom. Tell us the name of your book again and where they can find it, or where our listeners can find it.
Plants Are Speaking. Are You Listening? On Amazon.
On Amazon.
Excellent.
And is there a tree that you want to share with us this time around that you feel needs its voice heard by our listeners?
Bur oaks. Plant more bur oaks in our area. They will help our communities so much instability, they'll bring so much light to it. And they're practically wiped out, I want to say. I can only find a handful in my counties, and that's sad because they should be here.
Are they struggling with a pathogen, or is it just?
No, it just, for whatever reason, they haven't been planted or well received. I think it's because everybody always turns to, I need shade and I want it now. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, okay, I understand you're like 60 years old and you want shade, but let's think about for generations to come. Mm-hmm. I put one in my yard and no, I won't see it be a mature tree, but by gosh, it'll be there for somebody else.
And it's here today too. You're right. That perception is something people need to understand is don't worry about it for 20, 30, 40 years from now. Worry about the joy, enjoy it for getting it in the ground today.
Right. And you are sharing your love with the world by doing that for tomorrow. So, that's great energy to put out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
Thank you
and I
so
want to
much.
give the Latin name for that is Quercus macrocarpa. It has a macrocarpa, meaning large fruit. It has one of the largest acorns of all acorns. It's the mother of acorns. And it has it almost covers the whole entire acorn. The cap of it covers almost the entire acorn. So it has a lot of interest, especially for children. It's a very broad tree. It's one that you would find out in the prairie, really wide. It gets flattened with age. And I'm saying all this because I knew my daughter, her first marriage, she was married under a Quercus macrocarpa.
Oh, wow.
And it was huge. Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again, Linda. We wish you all the best in 2025. It's kind of hard to believe we're at 2025 already.
We made it.
Yeah, we made it. And we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, wishing you much success on the book. And I did notice it's also available on Kindle. So if you just download it, you won't have to get a paper copy. Wink, wink.
Won't cut down any more trees. Wink, wink.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you guys, and great success to both of you in 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. The Plant a Trillion Trees podcast is edited by Andromedan Recordings in Hollywood, California.